Thank you. Okay, we've got a Chinese variety of juniper now, so one that's the cord-like foliage. This is a great little tree, nicely proportioned again, good stout trunk. The bark needs cleaning off, and the tree is, because of the pruning wounds here, the bark and the trunk is now starting to change shape because these branches have been removed. So we've got some nice character appearing there. Really, there's nothing more to do in this tree than to give it a clean up and create the dead wood. Again, we've only got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 branches. We need more, so we need to make little sub-branches. We need to encourage the tree to make branches from back here. Otherwise, the tree is going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. But as we said about junipers before, they need dead wood. So we need to make a sherry on the front of this tree and also on the back, which will link up to this broken section here. The cord variety of junipers is always very beautiful. It's always a thing that people, think of bonsai, they think of trees like this, juniper bonsai. Keep them in good condition is very, very difficult. Junipers are randomly dominant. With a deciduous tree, often the top is, or a pine tree or larch, the top is always the strongest point. With a shrub or an azalea, the branches down here are always the strongest point. Because of its nature, it's not a tree, it's a shrub. However, junipers are randomly dominant. In other words, this can grow, this might grow here, this might die, this might get weak at the back. It's very, very difficult. So the balance is not the same as with other trees. Normally on most bonsai, this section here is very, very strong. The shoulders of the tree around here are next, and then the lower branches are often the weakest. And our job is often to balance that out. So you're keeping the strong back and allowing the weak to come through, and keeping everything the same. And this is a problem with junipers. They need a little bit more attention, but the biggest thing they need more than anything else is light. This is the problem. If you find branches aren't growing on your juniper, it's because it's not getting enough light. It might be a beautiful green colour or blue, but it needs to be, just give it as much light possibly as I can't emphasise that enough, as you possibly can. The pruning on junipers is very difficult. A lot has changed over recent years. We used to be told to pinch all the growing tips out. But as we said before, when you prune too hard with a tree, it knocks the stuffing out of it, it takes the life out of the tree. It needs to be nurtured and not forced to grow, okay? It's not a case of you take all those buds off and the tree will have to grow or die, because it'll probably just die. It won't play the game. So it needs to be nurtured, and to do that, we need to look at the tree and what is growing well, what is getting full. Okay, so I'll just tilt a little bit. You can start to see what's weak and what's strong. So we've got a weak section here where the branches aren't growing so well. This is a weak branch here. But here we've got a growing tip growing very, very strongly, as is there. On this lower branch, there's an area there which is growing strongly, an area there which is growing strongly, an area there. But behind that, there's growth, there's foliage, but there's no buds. They're not growing. And these are the parts that we need to balance in the tree. If we don't prune properly, the tree will become like a pile of green donuts. Big pom-poms. Okay. And that's happening a little bit here. So we need to prune a little bit more with scissors and less with the fingertips. You can pull off the odd shoot with your fingertips, there's no problem doing that, but it must be growing underneath. Okay. So, if this is our foliage pad here, okay. Anything that goes beyond this, we can prune with scissors. Not finger pinch. If we take every little growing tip off of here, the tree will just wither and die. It's not strong enough. The tree, as I say, is randomly dominant. This is why junipers have deadwood, because it sheds branches. So keep that in mind when you work on junipers. Too much work and it will shed the branch. It won't play the game. Okay, so scissors is okay. But what you need to develop is like little sprigs of broccoli, okay? Little healthy parts of foliage. okay, that are bright green. Anything that's growing on the inside of the shoot, we can prune away with scissors, okay? It won't grow anyway. Usually with a branch, you've got the shoots which are growing strongly, and then at the back is the stuff that's very, very weak. The weak stuff will not grow, so take it out, okay? And what will happen then is you'll get new strong shoots coming from back here, okay? And then we can prune back. But just to prune these sections back, the strong section will just weaken the tree even more. The tree needs to be coaxed into growing. So no finger pinching, only using scissors in the foliage. And here with this tree, we need to create maybe 30 foliage pads out of what we've got here. So this branch here needs to be divided into, 3 branches, or so on. What we'll do is I'll do a quick sketch, so you can see what we need to achieve. The position of the trunk is absolutely fine. We don't need to alter the angle at all. Let's start with the lower. The trunk and roots are good. We've got strong roots at either side. We've got branches at either side, so that's where the live veins are going to sort of continue. So the tree needs to be compacted a little bit more than what we've already got. And deadwood needs a lot of work, so which is sort of the image we should be sort of aiming for, with lots and lots of sub pads, and not lots and lots of small pads, and not just 3 or 4 large areas. Important things to remember: the deadwood is framed by the green sections here. Okay, so it stands out. The deadwood again is the most important thing. So don't overcarve it. Let the natural grain of the wood stand out. The tree always needs to be asymmetrical, so these 2 levels should always be at different levels, not the same. Otherwise, if these were at the same levels, it would be far too equal. That would be the same as that, and wouldn't be very attractive. It wouldn't be very dynamic. So it needs to go one way or the other. The tree is always best going in the same direction as the first major branch. If you don't do that, okay? If you've got one branch here and the top of the tree going that way, the 2 things are going in opposite directions. There's no harmony. Okay? So better that the tree goes in the same direction as the first major branch. So maybe with this tree we can either have this long and this short, so we keep this side down, or vice versa. This can be allowed to extend and this is kept short, but one or the other, not both the same, otherwise it'll look like a triangle on a stick. But for today, this tree needs the deadwood making, so the bark cleaning, the deadwood making, and we're very lucky with this tree. It's got some good roots to the side, so the sherry, the deadwood, will always be at the front of the tree, but also we need to make it at the back as well, up to this chin. These need ripping back and made a lot more attractive. When you're making juniper, dead-grown junipers, do exactly what's gone on here. Just break it very roughly and then allow it to dry out. From there we can use it a thread at a time, just pulling one little minute strip of wood away and peeling it back, and that will give us a much more natural effect. But the junipers, although the most beautiful, the biggest thing is to give them as much light as possible, and also a good deal of feed. Chinese junipers need quite a lot of water during the summer. Getting your soil right is very, very important. Sieving your soil with any tree is very important. Without getting the soil right, you cannot expect to get the watering right. So just talk a little bit about soils and things while I've managed to broach on the subject. Do you all use drainage layer in your pots? No? Yes? Do you always put like a drainage layer, big stone? Yeah. No matter what size pot you use, that should always be the case. Okay, maybe just one particle thickness. It's important that you grade the soil. Often people tell me, oh, I don't use akadama because it breaks, it smashes up too easily, it becomes mud. When I was first in Japan, I had to repot a customer's trees into any pot. So I repot them, did a good job, and the owner came back and he brought some new pots that he wanted the trees to go into now. He just bought some more pots. So I had to take all these trees out of the pots. And it was only then that I realised how much soil I'd actually broken in the bottom of the pot. It was red mud that the tree was sitting in. Consider this tree is going to be in there for 4 years. It's now going to sit in mud for 4 years and not drain properly. The tree is not going to be good as a bonsai. So you must take extra special care when you're repotting. People who say akadama breaks down, it's because they go when they're repotting. You know, yes, it will break down when you, like Norman Bates in Psycho. Be gentle with the soil because it will break down. Any soil that you crush is going to be bad for the tree. If I held a tree like this in Japan and put my thumbs on top of it, I would be told off because even doing that, I'm breaking soil down. I'm creating dust, which will sink to the bottom of the pot, which is why this drainage layer is very important. Because you've got your holes, and any soil that comes down will go to the bottom and find their way out. Any dust that comes out will find its way out then. If all the particles are the same size, it won't do that, it will clog. And then next is your medium-sized particles. Okay, and then finally your finest size. Okay, so it gets thicker as you go through the pot, and grading the soil is very, very important because it will stop the pot clogging. It will stop it. It will stop it from. It will keep it draining. So any dust that falls through this pot will find it easier and easier to get out to the bottom because the particles are getting bigger. So to improve the drainage of soil, you don't need to add more grit, you need to just make your particle size bigger. So species like Japanese white pine, if you imagine a scale with sort of willow there, and then red pine at the end, you know, this needs water, lots and lots of water, this needs very, very little. We do that by creating the correct soil within the pot, as well as watering, not just watering alone. So this tree has the biggest soil, this one can have much smaller granules. But it's important that you grade the soil perfectly in the pot, that's really important. And then periodically you can take off the surface of the soil because this will break down with fertilisers, with weeds. When you moss your tree up for the exhibition, you're also putting dust and parasites and insects into the soil. So as soon as you take your trees home, take the moss off because soil will get into there. You've also got the original field soil which needs to be removed at some point. Okay, so maybe a little at a time from when we repot, but the field soil also needs to go. So grade your soil perfectly well. If you use akadama, that's great, and kiryu, also find pumice, find something that works for you. What works for me in my garden might not work for you in yours. You need to find your own recipe, but the principle is the same. is sieving your soil really, really well. Getting the size right, okay? And especially with showroom size bonsai. Just because they're small, it doesn't mean they grow in dust. You know, they still need grading very, very well, the soil. Even more so. When you repot showroom bonsai, you've only got so much space for soil, not much at all, maybe, you know, 20 cubic, you know, maybe sort of 100 cubic centimetres, not much at all. So you need to make sure that there's no spaces within that pot. So when you water and you plunge it, any big air pockets, any big bubbles of air means that you've left space in the pot and the roots won't grow there. And if the roots won't grow there, then the branch will die. The tree won't do well, it won't be a bonsai, and you're wasting your time.